This could be making your tamoxifen less effective. In this video, I'm showing you which foods and medications you need to avoid if you're on tamoxifen. Without knowing this, your tamoxifen might not be working. This means that your risk of a breast cancer recurrence could be up to 95% greater, even though you're taking that little pill every single day. The worst part is that there's absolutely no sign that your tamoxifen is ineffective. You actually won't feel any different. So knowing this could save your life. Let's dive into the first food that you need to avoid if you're on tamoxifen. Grapefruit. Ugh. I honestly can't imagine someone wanting to eat a grapefruit or drink a glass of grapefruit juice every single morning. But hey, to each their own. So if you're a grapefruit lover, listen up. Here's what you need to know. Tamoxifen is a prodrug. This means that it requires activation in your body to get to its active form, endoxifen. Without this activation, tamoxifen is just not going to be useful in lowering your risk of a cancer recurrence. It's essentially ineffective. What happens in the body to make it active is that an enzyme actually activates it. This enzyme is called CYP2D6. The unfortunate part about having this enzyme in your body is that the foods we eat or the supplements we take can increase or decrease the amount of this enzyme. Foods that lower the amount of this enzyme will actually make tamoxifen less effective. Yikes. One of those foods is grapefruit. Now, this interaction is pretty significant. Some women who love grapefruit think that they might be able to eat a grapefruit in the morning or drink a glass of grapefruit juice and then take their tamoxifen in the evening and it'll be safe. But this is wrong. Tamoxifen actually has long-lasting effects on the body. So spacing out when you take your tamoxifen pill with when you eat your grapefruit isn't going to work. The grapefruit will still have the same effect. Even eating just one grapefruit or drinking one glass of grapefruit juice will actually make your tamoxifen less effective for 24 to 48 hours. Now, women that work with me in the Cancer Freedom Program will often ask about other citrus. If grapefruit has this effect, then does the same thing happen with oranges, lemons, limes? Are they safe? The reason why grapefruit has this impact on tamoxifen is because of a compound within grapefruit. That's what actually causes the issue. Now, there's one other citrus fruit that has this same compound that could interact with tamoxifen, and that's Seville oranges. This is also known as a bitter orange or a sour orange and is commonly used to make marmalade. Now, obviously, because of their taste, you don't have to worry about eating this orange as a hand fruit because they don't taste very good. But you might want to start avoiding marmalade. Okay, but that brings me to the next food that you should avoid if you're taking tamoxifen. Turmeric. You should be cautious about turmeric or curcumin, which is the active form of turmeric. Now, turmeric is very popular among cancer survivors because it's been shown to have anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer effects. It's known to reduce the risk of several types of cancers, but there is a problem with breast cancer survivors who take tamoxifen. Turmeric supplements should not be taken if you're also taking tamoxifen. Unfortunately, curcumin interacts with the enzyme that tamoxifen needs to become its active form. That means if you're taking tamoxifen and curcumin, tamoxifen might never get to its active form, and therefore it's not going to help you lower your risk of a breast cancer recurrence. Curcumin makes tamoxifen less effective or ineffective. This means that you need to avoid turmeric supplements if you're on tamoxifen. But what about turmeric in your food? Can you safely add it to your food and eat it that way? The answer is yes, that it is safe. The reason why is because the dose matters. How much turmeric you consume influences its ability to make tamoxifen ineffective. The amount you get from your food is actually a small dose compared to the mega dose you get from a supplement. Now, do not take this to the extreme. Some people will do turmeric shots in the morning or start adding in turmeric to every dish they eat. Don't do this, but use turmeric in small amounts when you need it in a dish or when you're eating out in a restaurant. Your tamoxifen will still be effective. Just keep the amount small. Okay, but now on to the next thing that you should not be taking if you're also on tamoxifen. That's ginseng. Ginseng is popular for boosting your immune system, but also boosting your energy. That's two very common reasons why cancer survivors might take ginseng as a supplement. But the problem is that ginseng is known for keeping tamoxifen from getting to its active form. So by taking ginseng, you could potentially be making your tamoxifen ineffective. Best to entirely avoid ginseng while on tamoxifen. But there are also medications which make tamoxifen less effective or ineffective. A common medication is Benadryl. Benadryl is an allergy medication, but it's also commonly used by women if they're having trouble sleeping at night. The side effect of Benadryl is drowsiness, so some women take it before bedtime to help them fall asleep. But Benadryl can actually interact with tamoxifen, making it less effective. So if you need support with sleep or allergies, there are other medications that you can take that are safe while you take tamoxifen. Check with your care team about switching to something different. Okay, but on to this next medication that you absolutely should avoid if you're on tamoxifen. And this is a big one, and a lot of people don't know about it. Antidepressants. Antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications leave the biggest potential for interactions with tamoxifen. It's completely understandable that women struggle with depression and anxiety after a cancer diagnosis. I mean, you've faced a life-threatening illness. You're fearful about it returning at any time. There's also considerable trauma when you're going through scans and surgeries, chemo, radiation. When you finally finish your treatment, it's common for a breast cancer survivor to be on a medication for depression or anxiety. Approximately 21% of cancer survivors end up on a medication like this. But breast cancer survivors are not just on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications for depression and anxiety. They're also used for other reasons. Many survivors struggle with hot flashes because their estrogen is being suppressed because of their treatments like tamoxifen. Now, of course, you're unable to have hormone replacement therapy to control your hot flashes because the hormones could potentially fuel a cancer recurrence. But antidepressant medications are one of the ways that we can manage hot flashes without any hormones. Antidepressant medications are safe to take to manage hot flashes in estrogen-positive breast cancer survivors. Antidepressant medications are also used to control nerve pain or neuropathy. The problem with antidepressants is that some of them interact with tamoxifen, making it less effective, and some of them are safe. Here's exactly what you need to know. The amount an antidepressant interacts with tamoxifen depends on the amount it interacts with that CYP2D6 enzyme. For example, paroxetine, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, or SSRI, which is a very popular medication for depression or anxiety, is actually known for interacting with CYP2D6 and making tamoxifen less effective. This is a dangerous combination. When we look at breast cancer survivors who are on drugs like paroxetine, known for reducing the effectiveness of tamoxifen, we see that they are more likely to have a breast cancer recurrence. The relative risk of breast cancer recurrence increases by 25 to 92%. This range really depends on the length of time a woman was on the antidepressant at the same time as tamoxifen. The increased risk of recurrence also suggests that breast cancer survivors are at a higher risk of death if they're on tamoxifen and an antidepressant like paroxetine. So how do you know if your antidepressant is safe? You want to make sure you take drugs that you need, but you also want to make sure that your tamoxifen is going to work. So here's what you need to know. These are the antidepressants that are at the highest risk of interacting with tamoxifen. These are the drugs which should be avoided: fluoxetine, paroxetine, and bupropion. Now, antidepressants that may interact with tamoxifen, we're not certain, but they likely should be avoided to be safe. These are drugs like sertraline or duloxetine. Now, other antidepressants are safe for breast cancer survivors on tamoxifen. There's no interaction. This would include the following drugs, but not necessarily limited just to this list. If your medication is not on here, then it's best to ask your medical care team to make sure they double check and that your drug doesn't interact with your tamoxifen. But really, medications and food interactions with tamoxifen are just one piece to this. There's a much larger issue around tamoxifen that's gaining some attention. This is how much of the enzyme that's needed to convert tamoxifen to its active form is actually present in your body. You see, levels of CYP2D6 may be higher in my body compared to your body, which means our ability to use tamoxifen would differ as well. This is just your innate ability. You're born with enzyme levels. A study looking at 1,300 women showed that those with the lowest levels of CYP2D6 actually had the highest risk of cancer recurrence. The women with the highest levels of CYP2D6, meaning that they were most likely to be able to use tamoxifen, had a recurrence rate of around 15%. But the women with the lowest levels, meaning that they couldn't use tamoxifen as well, had a recurrence rate of around 29%, nearly double. Your natural ability to use tamoxifen plays a role. But the only way to know if you have adequate levels of CYP2D6 is to test it. So here's what you need to know. You can get your CYP2D6 genotype tested. First, talk with your doctor to see if it's easily accessible to you, because it might just need to be ordered. If not, then there are a lot of private companies that will quickly provide this test to you at a pretty reasonable cost, maybe a couple $100s. Finding out if your body can effectively use tamoxifen is important. Otherwise, you might be taking a drug that isn't offering you much protection from a breast cancer recurrence. So what if you're on a different anti-hormonal drug? Do these interactions still apply to you? What if you're on drugs like anastrozole, exemestane, or letrozole? Should you be avoiding all these medications and supplements as well? The short answer is no. The anti-hormonal medications that you're on work in very different ways, so these interactions just don't apply to you. Okay, but if you're taking tamoxifen, then you definitely need to watch this next video, Tamoxifen Secrets. Click the link here and I'll see you in the next video.